I want to just remind our participants to stay on mute when not speaking, but we certainly encourage companies to engage during the moderated discussion that will occur after Das Sasahara's remarks. Uh, as I said, my name is Khush Choksy. I'm the Senior Vice President for Middle East, Turkey, and Kazakhstan at the U.S. Chamber. I'm joined by my two colleagues at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce who run our U.S. Egypt Business Council, Steve Lutz, Vice President for Middle East, and Anna Beres, the manager on Middle East and on the U.S. Egypt Business Council. We are also joined by Hisham Fahmy, the CEO of AmCham Egypt Inc., and for many years who led AmCham Egypt in Egypt. As everyone knows, AmCham Egypt is our close partner, working with the U.S. Chamber and our U.S. Egypt Business Council, and of course, the counterpart to the U.S. Egypt Business Council is the Egypt U.S. Business Council, in as much as it's a board and not members. That function is done in Egypt by the AmCham. These four logos, as you often see on our events, and four entities work very closely together. As we look to this year, Council is coming off its 40th and the follow-on 41st year of its set of events that started off with events to celebrate the 40th anniversary 2 years ago of the Council and in its rich history since it was launched by President Sadat and Carter at the U.S. Chamber. I also want to recognize and welcome the Apache Corporation, the largest U.S. investor in Egypt, continues to serve this year as our chair, and Apache CEO John Chrisman. As we look to this year, we certainly, Steve will walk through our plans, but we certainly plan to have a number of events, and we were the first to host the new Egyptian ambassador to the U.S., and we'll look to continue to do a number of programs as Egyptian officials, either virtually or come through in person, and we'll see if it's early on in the year, if we can capture an event virtually, if foreign minister and others come through in person. I'm sure certainly Das Sasahara may have some insights into it, or insights into when the postponed U.S.-Egypt strategic dialogue may be, but we've always served as the first port of call for officials and will continue to do so. At this point, let me turn it over to Hisham Fahmy from AmCham Egypt to say a few words, followed by I'll come back and introduce the DAS. Hisham, over to you.
Thank you, Khush. Thank you, everybody. Good morning and good afternoon, or those who are not in Washington. It's always a pleasure to do some events.
Sorry, okay. Sorry, okay. Can you hear me?
Who's that? Okay.
We can.
Okay.
As I was saying, it's a real pleasure to always work with the Egypt-U.S. Business Council, and AmCham Egypt has been very close to the council, and we work together all the time. AmCham Egypt now in Cairo, that we have 1,900 members who are active, and we have 20 sectorial committees that meet basically on a monthly basis, and we do a lot of position papers to the government and to each other, actually, to make sure that Egypt is business friendly, whether locally or for U.S. companies. We also address with the council a lot of issues that we hope they don't be a lot, but a lot of issues that American companies have in Egypt, and we support them, and we work on that. AmCham Egypt is also the founding member and permanent secretariat of the AmCham MENA Council. We have now 11 AmChams around the region that we serve. We have a rotating chairmanship, and at the moment it's AmCham Jordan, and the next chair will be AmCham Egypt. I won't go in on everything that AmCham does, except that just to clarify that we have now AmCham Egypt Inc., and that came from that we've been coming to Washington as a door knock delegations of 10, 20, 30, 40 members for every year since 1984, except 2020. And we felt the need to have a Washington base to follow up on all the issues that that are raised in our annual door knocks. So we actually do more than one door knock sometimes, and to keep in contact with all our stakeholders in Washington. And as I said before, we work very closely with the U.S. Egypt Business Council, the U.S. Chamber, and many others in Washington. Look forward to working with you, and thank you for being with us today. I'll push it back to Steve, I guess, or Khush.
Thank you, Hisham, for your words and also the partnership. I now have the pleasure of introducing our featured guest. Karen Sasahara was named the Deputy Assistant Secretary for North Africa in November of last year. But she's no stranger to the Chamber's Middle East Affairs Department, having engaged with our team during her recent tenure as chargé at the U.S. Embassy in Amman, and before that as the Consul General in Jerusalem. We're fortunate to have her leadership in her current role, particularly given that she has spent the majority of her foreign service career in the Middle East post or in assignments in the Bureau of Near Eastern Affairs at State. Some of her most recent roles include Senior Advisor and Division Chief in the Bureau for Intelligence and Research Officer for the Analysis of Terrorism, Narcotics and Crime, the Deputy Chief of Mission in Sana'a, Yemen, the Foreign Policy Advisor to the Commanding General of Special Ops at MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida. Sasahara, thank you for joining us today's virtual discussion. We're looking forward to hearing your perspectives and outlook on the U.S. trade and investment relationship with Egypt, any events that are coming up, how the business community can be helpful. I mean, we have served to try to keep, the relationship robust during good times and some of the more challenging times over the last decade. We have always enjoyed a warm and collegial relationship working with State. We are fortunate to have someone like Ambassador Jonathan Cohen in Egypt. So we look forward to your remarks and working with you in your tenure in this capacity. So with that, let me turn it over to you. Thank you.
Khush, thank you so much for that introduction. I really appreciate it. And let me just thank Steve and also Steve Lutz and Hisham Fahmy. Thanks again, Khush, and the team at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, U.S. Egypt Business Council for today's invitation. It's a real pleasure. I love partnering up with the Chambers of Commerce. I was really happy to hear you, Hisham, say that Jordan was the current chair. I enjoyed spending the time with Mohammed Batena, Rose Issi, and others. And then, as you had mentioned, Khush, about the chamber in Palestine, it was a real pleasure to work with Saeed Baranse and others. So I have great memories of that. And to be quite honest, before I joined the State Department, I spent a year and a half working at the Commerce Department. And so I am a big advocate of commerce and the business community, and it's always a real pleasure. And frankly, it is a very important part of our job. So I do look forward to doing that and seeing the team over here, and in better times, inshallah, being able to go to Egypt and visit Dunya again. A real pleasure. So I do want to begin by saying that stronger economic and commercial ties were central goals of our bilateral relationship. As you know, you'll be telling me, and I'm learning, Egypt is a dynamic country with a growing economy and unique regional challenges. Across the U.S. administrations, it is held true that the success of U.S. businesses in Egypt is in America's best interest. U.S. government support for your work is more important now than ever, given the support that your competitors get from their governments. I am eager to hear your thoughts on how we can help you to capitalize on commercial opportunities in Egypt. Of course, energy is one of the most promising areas of investment, not just in Egypt, but across the Eastern Mediterranean region. The establishment of the East Mediterranean Gas Forum is historic, and we look forward to working with Egypt on this newly established constructive platform to discuss regional Eastern Med energy integration. There are also significant opportunities in other sectors. These are opportunities that may be increasingly difficult to find elsewhere. While many economies and governments around the world are struggling with the impact of COVID, Egypt is marching forward with construction of its new administrative capital, expansion of its rail network, port development, and widespread digitization efforts, and so on. We want to help U.S. companies invest and compete for government contracts in all of these areas. I also look forward to hearing how we can help you increase your exports to Egypt, how we can best engage with the Egyptian government to ensure that American goods and services remain competitive in the Egyptian market. Despite a successful round of IMF macroeconomic reforms and Egypt's leading growth numbers during the pandemic, there are a host of structural investment climate issues that are impacting bilateral trade and investment, including regulatory uncertainty, customs clearance delays, insufficient protection for IPR, problems accessing government-owned land, the military's role in the economy, and opaque bureaucratic procedures. So these are not unique to Egypt. These are not things that have just come up overnight. These are things that I think we're constantly working on, trying to find the right way, the appropriate way to move forward successfully. So we'll continue to work on those. I am especially interested in hearing from all of you, and I'd like to start out just with a couple of questions to shape the discussion. Number one, what is your perspective on how COVID-19 has changed the investment and economic landscape in Egypt? And secondly, what you see as the biggest remaining barriers to increased trade and investment. But let me jump back before. I want to pick up on what you had said, Khush. You were interested in the rescheduling of the strategic dialogue. And I think you also were talking about how business can be helpful within the bilateral relationship. I'm happy to provide some information now, or if you'd like me to come back later, I will be guided by what you would like.
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Let me talk a little bit about the strategic dialogue. It was disappointing that we had to postpone it to a different date, but I will be very honest with you. I think just with the COVID environment in Washington, even though we were going to have it virtually, to be quite honest, we were getting ready, I think, for a new administration. I think we wanted to make sure that when we had the dialogue on both sides, that we would be able to talk about ideas that were going forward and be able to trade information with you and frankly talk about the new team that was going to be going in. And I think, to be honest, if I remember, because I came in on the job November 2nd, there really didn't seem to be a lot of time to pull it all together logistically. So I think we decided, and I think that your Ministry of Foreign Affairs was like, we need to take a step back. Let's make sure that when we do have the dialogue, that we're able to discuss everything fully and frankly have it reach its full potential. So we do look forward to rescheduling that and seeing if we can prioritize the issues and make sure that everything gets the time and the attention that it deserves. So we will be keeping in touch, obviously, with Jonathan and his team and others out there, other partners like yourself, so that you will have a good idea about that. The second thing that you said that I think is really, really important and is enduring is when you talked about the relationship, the role that the chambers and the Business Council has in the bilateral relationship. And that is absolutely correct. And it's really crucial because I want to speak frankly that we have a new administration. They're just getting settled in. They may be new, but to be quite honest, you're going to recognize a lot of the names. They've already been in the White House. They've been in the NSC. They've been in this building here. They know where the cafeteria is. They know where all of these places are. They're just getting back up on computers. Many of them have visited your countries. Many of them know the region very well. They know the issues very well. So I don't think it's going to be a steep learning curve on a number of the issues, but I am going to be very honest with you. As you probably are very well aware, is that human rights issues, consular issues are going to be woven within the relationship. It's something that I suspect is going to be more in focus, and it will be a part of the discussions. You'll hear them from the legislative branch when you go on the door knock. You're probably going to hear them when we have our discussions. Friends talk to friends. Friends talk to friends frankly. It is a hallmark of this administration. Our role and our job and our intent is not to beat Egypt with a stick. It's disrespectful. It's inappropriate. We want to have a dialogue. We want to make sure that there's no misunderstanding on either part. There's no miscommunication, but we talk to each other as we have over the decades as friends. Frankly, we want to resolve issues. We want to take bilateral irritants out of the road so that we can continue to have the discussion that we're having today successfully. Getting back to that, your role is to demonstrate or to remind Congress and others that the relationship is very broad, it's very deep, it's very complex. There is a success in the economic picture. There is a success in the commercial landscape. Congress and others must not have a flat, two-dimensional picture of what's going on in Egypt. There are things happening. They need to know about that. And I think when they hear about that, I want them to get excited about that. I want them to see the broad picture of what is Egypt and how they can help when they come out and visit. So that's my goal. I hope that will be your goal, to show them together what is Egypt in the 21st century and what I believe is in its 8th millennium. Let me just stop there and ask questions or continue the meeting along. Over. And thank you for the time.
Well, thank you so much for your observations and remarks, Karen, and we certainly agree with all of them. Our companies benefit when there is a level playing field, when there is consistency to rule of law, when there's free flow of information across digital and other media, because that is the operating environment in the United States, its primary market for all of our member companies that they're accustomed to. And the closer that the markets that we engage in adhere to many of these, which are really global international best practice standards, the more American companies benefit. It helps us vis-a-vis our competition, increasingly in the Middle East, from places like China that don't adhere to that same level of standards. And, it helps us further those things. Increasing the areas that are growing are in the digital economy. When there are constraints to the movement of free flow of information across borders, it inhibits our countries, but also our companies, but also and therefore hurts American workers, but also impacts those economies and the workers in Egypt in this particular case. So with that, let me turn it over to Steve to fill in the blanks on some of the things we missed in terms of our agenda and take a Q&A with you. Steve?
Well, thank you, Khush, and Sasahara, thank you so much. I think it's very encouraging, to hear the strategic approach you're bringing to this and the role that you see the private sector playing in the relationship. It's very much aligned with our outlook for how we can grow and deepen the bilateral relationship. So it's exciting, and I think we're all swimming in the same direction, and really look forward to working with you. And I'd also mention, I know both embassies, Ambassador Zahran, whom Khush noted we hosted earlier, and his team, led by Ahmed Sharif with the economic portfolio, and of course, Ambassador Cohen in the wonderful state econ team and commercial team out there. Again, a lot of great assets and a lot of great collaboration that I think between Washington and Cairo we can all pull together to continue to advance our interests. I'd also mention, Khush alluded to, we have some upcoming events that I think this is a great way to start the year. Coming up soon after, we'll have an invitation coming out on February 28th. We'll do a 2021 outlook with Ambassador Cohen, and we'll hear from his perspective there on the ground in Cairo. I'd also mention we are pulling together and we'll look to launch a U.S. Egypt Business Council social impact report that'll highlight and profile many of the incredible projects that our member companies are doing in Egypt. And it really helps to create a narrative, we hope, beyond just the pure business commercial interest and investment, that these U.S. companies, they're very much a part of the fabric of society there in Egypt and have been for decades and are doing incredible things that contribute to the overall health and prosperity of Egypt. And last but not least, I'd mention that we have several, as Hisham alluded to, several kind of work streams that we're working on with AmCham and our friends in government, be they in the data privacy laws, be they in the healthcare space on a whole host of issues. And we'll look to partner with AmCham and have those kind of virtual engagements going forward. Also looking at lessons learned from resiliency and how many of our companies have not only succeeded, but have created kind of new work streams and brought new ideas to the table through this pandemic. But what we'd love to do, Sasahara, to your point, I think, is use this as an opportunity as you're coming in to hear from some of our member companies that can impart their experiences, both challenges and opportunities in the remaining time that we have. And we've actually been fortunate to connect with a few who I think were excited about this event in advance. I'm going to go through those individuals and then we'll just open it up broadly for any remaining time we have. But let me start with somebody who actually, it's one of our vice chairs of our U.S. Egypt Business Council, but came over recently from the State Department, from Bechtel, Ambassador Justin Silverell. Let me go to you for your perspective from the vantage point there at Bechtel.
Well, thanks very much, Steve. Karen, wonderful to see you. Congratulations on your new role. Looking forward to working with you and supporting you in this important new job. Thanks very much, Khush and Steve and your colleagues at the U.S. Egypt Business Council for all you're doing to support U.S. business and for helping to encourage a robust and strong U.S. Egypt business partnership. Perhaps if I might, and Steve, if you'll indulge me, just to provide a quick snapshot to Karen for some of the activities we have ongoing in Egypt currently. And I think you'll know, Karen, we have a long history in the country. We're this year completing 45 years in Egypt. And in that time, Bechtel's been involved in developing and helping to realize some of the most significant infrastructure projects in the country. Currently, we have several large-scale, exciting projects underway. The first to mention is up on near Alexandria in Idku, the West Nile Delta gas processing plant. This is a plant that's just being commissioned now. It will process gas that comes in from Egypt's offshore fields. Very important contributor to the natural resource base for Egypt's power needs. Also, that will feed into the LNG facilities that we've historically been involved in. They're collected around Idku. We have recently signed a contract and are involved in early works on a new petrochemical refinery, the Suez Petrochemical Refinery, which is actually in Ain Sokhna, just south of Suez. And that's a project in cooperation with the Ministry of Petroleum as well. We are engaged in a feasibility study for the expansion of the aluminum smelter, a new line, not line 7, for Egypt Alum's facility that kind of dates back to the 1980s in Upper Egypt. Very exciting opportunity to bring new investment into Egypt's aluminum industry that will feed downstream industry. And the ambition there is to get into, I think, some of the automotive and other manufacturing opportunities around aluminum. We're in discussions with the Ministry of Transportation to develop a new Line 6 of the Cairo Metro, major project that is in discussion currently. And also in conversation with the Ministry of Housing on some of the new city development, including for the new administrative capital So we see, tremendous opportunity in Egypt, actually, and this is, the result of a long history in the country, but also a real enthusiasm that we've seen over the last couple of years from the government. I mean, really an urgency, actually, to, develop the country's infrastructure, to invest in Egypt in a way that helps to spur the country's industrial and manufacturing base. And there's a real enthusiasm for U.S. companies to participate in that work. We detect that from the senior-most levels of government. I think there's an admiration for U.S. business practices. And the government wants to see U.S. companies like ours partnering with Egyptian companies, sharing knowledge, helping to upskill the workforce. That comes through in every conversation we have with senior leaders, the cabinet members reporting into the president. And for us, that's absolutely what we're committed to. We're committed to developing partnerships that are two-way and that are mutually beneficial with the Egyptian companies with whom we partner, and we must partner to do the kind of work we do in the country. We've had exceptional support from the U.S. government, and in particular from U.S. Embassy in Cairo. Ambassador Cohen, as was mentioned, and his terrific commercial team, also from the AmCham and from the U.S. Egypt Business Council. All of these organizations working together, I think, for a common goal, as Steve noted, and we're very, very appreciative for that. I guess as an observation, I think it's important, although I said that there's real enthusiasm for U.S. companies to be working in the country. It's a very competitive market. And the Egyptian government, it's important to them to see strong support from the U.S. government for this kind of, private sector engagement. That's not only in terms of some of the tools, the traditional tools that are made available through, Department of Commerce advocacy or, EXIM, export credit facilities, DFC, US TDA, those kinds of support mechanisms, but also, actual visible political support when the moment is right. Again, we're competing in a very difficult market where, the Chinese and others, European competitors, will often bring that sort of support to bear. So we look forward to keeping you well informed on our activities there. We'd love to have you out at one of our project sites, when you visit Egypt, and we do that frequently with the ambassador and other senior officials who are in the country. Again, it's pleasure to see you and look forward to working closely with you, and all the best to you and good luck in this new role, Karen. Thank you very much, Steve.
Let me just jump in and say, Justin, thank you very much. I saw your name on the participant roll, so it was really great. It's wonderful to see you again. And it's Bechtel. You guys are everywhere doing everything. It's very, very exciting. And I do look forward to having that opportunity to come out and to see these things. Over.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Justin and Sasahara. I think one of the key points that he brings forward there is the whole of government approach. And at the Chamber, we very much believe in pulling resources together and drawing upon those across the U.S. government and our friends in the Egyptian government, and we'll continue to endeavor to do that. Next, shifting to another sector, let me go to another a company that's had a lot of leadership on the council over the years and another very active member, Caroline Burson from PepsiCo. Caroline?
Great, thank you, Steve, and Sasahara. It's a pleasure to speak with you, and thanks to the Chamber for organizing this event. So PepsiCo is proud to have been operating in Egypt for 70 years. Many people know us as brand Pepsi, but in Egypt we also manufacture and sell a number of other products like 7-Up, Mirinda, Chipsy, Doritos. We're very active in both the food and beverage space. We have 14,000 employees across our 9 manufacturing plants, 30 warehouses and distribution centers. And we also have one of our largest farming programs across our company in Egypt. We work with 4,000 Egyptian farmers to cultivate 40,000 acres of farmland. So we're very directly involved in the full kind of food system space in terms of growing to development to distribution. I'm also proud to say that since 2014, we've invested over $1.1 billion in Egypt as part of this broader ecosystem, in new technologies, sustainability initiatives, et cetera. You mentioned COVID earlier. We've, of course, with many of the colleagues on the call and many of the other companies have been part of supporting Egypt's response to COVID. We've committed over 22 million Egyptian pounds to relief efforts related to food insecurity and challenges in the health sector, and have been very focused on providing meals for daily wage workers and others who have been impacted by the pandemic. In response to your specific questions about COVID and barriers to investment, I very much appreciated your reference to regulatory uncertainty that, well, as you said, is not unique to Egypt, is something that we're all constantly working on to include with regard to evolving tax regimes and promoting a level playing field. And as my colleague from Bechtel said, we see so much opportunity in Egypt and really welcome the opportunity to work with you and your team to continue to lift up the positive impact of American companies in Egypt and to help ensure companies like PepsiCo have the space within existing and also these evolving regulatory landscapes to make sure that we can continue to be strong economic contributors. So really just wanted to use the opportunity to say, to welcome you, give you a brief introduction to PepsiCo, and look forward to a strong partnership in the months and years to come.
Great. Carolyn, thank you so much. Let me just say briefly, please call me Karen. Thank you. Everybody, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Caroline and Karen. And kind of staying in that whole idea of, some of these regulatory challenges, I'd like to call next on Lorraine Hawley at ADM, and I believe Van Yoder from Cargill's joined us. I think the issue that Lorraine will outline speaks to the type of effort, where we're collaborating as the private sector with our friends in USG and our friends in the Egyptian government to resolve what's a really important issue. I think we're almost to the finish line, but I'll let Lorraine do a little bit deeper dive and perhaps bring you up to speed on this issue. Lorraine?
Good morning. Thank you for your time here with us this morning. I'll try to be brief because I know my colleague from Cargill, Van, will also want to make comments on the same issue. I'm representing Archer Daniels Midland Company, ADM, and as background, ADM is a global agribusiness company operating in 160 countries around the world. And we've been very proud for the last 50-some years on the role that our company has played to be a partner in Egypt's efforts to provide reliable, affordable supplies of grains, oil, seeds, and feed products to meet Egypt's domestic demand. And the issue that I wanted to raise today regards our concern around Egypt's VAT on freight policy, which was implemented in mid-2020. The VAT was applied to freight costs associated with commodity imports, which of course significantly impacted our sector since we manage imports of various agricultural commodities coming into Egypt. The regulation itself was created in 2016, but it was never acted upon because it's not consistent with international standards for VAT policies, places undue burdens on importers of commodities, foreign and Egyptian alike, and actually was also inconsistent with Egypt's own Decree 67, which exempts the food and agriculture sector from the application of a VAT. So there were two key issues with the policy. First was the implementation of the VAT itself on future shipments to Egypt. But then more importantly, of course, was the Egyptian government effort to apply the VAT retroactively back to 2016. We were very actively working with both the U.S. and Egyptian governments, and I have to say we very much appreciated the collaboration with our U.S. government colleagues and their support on this issue. We were able to successfully resolve the issue in part. The government of Egypt late last year made the decision to not apply the VAT retroactively and to address the forward-looking VAT on freight, which was implemented in mid-2020 through its legislative package, which we understand will be taken up and considered by the Parliament probably later this month or into February. And as we have still yet to officially resolve this policy, there continues to be uncertainty around the trading environment, which impacts, our long-term perspective of the landscape of doing business in Egypt. So until this legislation is actually passed in the Parliament, we would very much appreciate, the continued support of the U.S. government. It's been terrific thus far. And we'll, of course, continue working with the Egyptian government directly and through the U.S. Egypt Business Council and with U.S. Embassy in Cairo, which has just been terrific. So I'll stop there. Thank you again for your time this morning.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for that.
Van, did you want to add anything briefly on that?
Yeah, hi, Karen. This is Van Yider from Cargill. Nice to see you. Cargill's a large agri-food company, global, international, as you may have run into us many times in your career, I'm sure. In Egypt, Lorraine said it well related to this VAT issue. I think kind of my message or request from you, Karen, would be commercial diplomacy is really important in Egypt and around the world. And you've got a lot of good people that are working hard, both in the State Department and the Commerce Department and AmCham and other areas. We all need to work together. In Egypt, it seems as though relentlessness and a sustained efforts are really required to get many things done. It takes some time sometimes to get across the line. The one issue that Lorraine just talked about is an example of that. We need to continue to kind of make sure that gets over the line. I think the Egyptian government has done a nice job of listening and hearing the concerns and being responsive. But again, we just need to get that over the line. Let me give you just two other quick little examples. There's a health insurance tax in Egypt today that is based on sales revenue. Our company and some other companies who are low margin companies have gone into the government to say, hey, this really isn't a fair way to do it, right? If you base your tax on sales rather than profit, those companies with very low margins are going to have a huge tax burden versus companies that have high margins. So a company like Cargill, where you earn a very little amount on lots of sales for selling corn, we're going to get killed by a tax on sales versus somebody, a computer company that makes a lot of money on far fewer sales, and it's based not on profit. So we've been trying to push that one. I think that's a fairness issue in Egypt, and we'd like maybe your push and others to have a look at that in Egypt. And there's other kind of commercial issues. We have an issue in the port of Decatur that we're working on. We appreciate the continued support of you and your team. It's a smaller issue, but we're trying hard to kind of work through it with the Egyptian government. So commercial diplomacy is hugely important to help level the playing field and help companies, U.S. companies in Egypt. So thanks, Steve. Thanks, Khush, and appreciate all your help, Karen. Thank you.
Well, let me thank both Lorraine and Van for those points. And Karen, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention we have some materials we can send over to you that I think outlines not only the issue that Lorraine raised, but also several of the issue buckets across the board that I think that we've done in close collaboration with our friends at AmCham that you might find useful for your purposes. Van, you alluded to the health insurance law, and that helps me kind of feed into the next person I'd like to call in. I'd like to go to Denise at Merck. And I know, Karen, I'd love to say that we work with a lot of the healthcare companies, and of course, a lot of attention's been brought forward of, needless to say, during the pandemic. But outside of that, there's just been such a great amount of work that has went in collaboration. Denise, I'd like to turn to you, for any thoughts you might have on what are prioritized or what's being prioritized by the industry.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. And thank you very much for joining us today. So, I mean, as Merck, as you may know, we are a global biopharmaceutical company heavily invested in research and development, operating in over 140 countries globally. And we're working on various areas such as oncology, vaccines, infectious diseases, cardiovascular diseases on multiple fronts. And Egypt is a key market for us in North Africa, I guess, as is for other pharmaceutical companies on this call. So in the past year and a half, there has been some developments in the pharmaceutical space and beyond. 3 new agencies were established in Egypt: the Egyptian Drug Authority, Unified Procurement Agency for Medicinal Products and Medicines, and also a Universal Healthcare Insurance Agency looking at extending universal health coverage for the Egyptian population in line with Egypt's 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. So this presents a unique opportunity, I guess, for U.S. companies to partner with those agencies as they're getting up to speed in terms of creating, I would say, productive policies and a competitive environment, as well as building capacity for those agencies. So on that front, actually, we have been in touch with USTDA on kind of coming up with a package for building or benchmarking the new structure of the Egyptian Drug Authority, as well as building capacity of its newly employed staff. Also, we're working with international experts through Pharma Middle East that we work in close collaboration with on creating headroom for innovative treatments and making them accessible and available for the Egyptian patients, including the long-standing pricing reform in Egypt. So that way, we can, share with them best case practices globally and also help them shape their system on a positive track. On the IP side, however, last February, a ministerial council was established with a broad discretion on granting compulsory licenses. However, we haven't seen that come to fruition, but that is something we're keeping a close eye on, and we appreciate all the support we're getting, both from the embassy and also from the chamber on that front. And as we're moving forward in 2021, the chamber, I know, is planning a series of meetings on the healthcare sector, and we will very much appreciate the support we'll be receiving, from the State Department on that, as well as, folks from the embassy. So over to you, Steve.
Karen, any reaction? If you have any reaction to that, by all means. There's a lot going on in the space.
It's Egypt, of course. No, I really agree with what Van had said and Justin. It takes work, it takes attention, and we want to be, of course, the preferred partner, the partner of first choice. But that takes work, because as I think Khush or even Hisham said, it's a very competitive open field. We know the Chinese are there, others are there, our European friends are there. That, Egypt can shop around. Egypt can look and see what is the best package for them based on what they want to do. So we know that we have to work just as hard. You represent some of the most amazing, like iconic brands that are out there globally. So it's a really, really big calling card. But I think, as Denise and others have pointed out, there are regulatory issues, there are tax issues, that are things there that make it difficult even for the largest global company to overcome. So we do want to partner with you and see how we can work that through. Over. And I do look forward to getting the information, Steve. I do want to get smart on all of these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd just mention, particularly as new government entities come online, like the three that Denise mentioned, or in other areas, I think that's a huge opportunity for the private sector in partnership with our friends in government to help with that capacity building, to help, help drive our interest going forward. So important points on that. USTDA was invoked, and Karen, at the onset, you mentioned the energy sector. And that's a space that we're very active in, and we have a very us here in Washington and our friends at AmCham. We're huge fans of Minister O'Mullen. There's a lot of collaboration, both in the EMGF and in other opportunities across the board. I'd like to go to Amy Conroy from Chevron for perhaps some perspective from the sector. Amy? And then Jeff from Honeywell, you'll be in the on-deck circle. Amy, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, Karen. I'm Amy Conroy. I'm Chevron's representative in the DC office for the Middle East and other regions. And welcome, and really great to meet you and work with you. we've had a great relationship with your predecessors and with the embassy, so thank you. So Chevron has had a small office in Egypt for a long time, lubricants and downstream, but we've really expanded our presence within the last 2 years. So we have acquired now in total 6 blocks. We had 3 in the East Med and 1 in the Red Sea. And then we recently acquired Noble Energy with that received 2 more blocks in the East Med. And so we just look forward to working with you on this Eastern Med kind of gas forum. Now that we're exporting gas from Israel to Egypt, it started in January, and it's really a tribute to the region and the possibilities of regional gas markets. So really nice to talk to you. We could talk more later, but that's kind of a quick overview.
Oh, that's great, Amy. I had forgotten that Chevron purchased Noble. I was in Jordan on January 1st, 2020, when they opened up the pipes, and it was very, very exciting. So, and I met with some of your colleagues when they came out to talk about the purchase. So again, like you said and alluded to, the Eastern Med, it's very exciting. This is what's happening. It's really great that Egypt's a part of that, but that's a function of geography. So we do look forward to hearing more about that. Thank you.
And Karen, I'd mention not in the energy sector, the U.S. Chamber is actually an official member of the Gas Industry Advisory Committee, as are a number of our member companies, but we're the only kind of non-company business association, and that's part of the fact that we operate across so many different markets and can speak to both the Israel piece, the Egypt piece, and the others. So we're very excited to be a part of that and contributing to that. Next, we'll look to squeeze in our friend Jeff from Honeywell. I know Honeywell's got a lot cooking in Egypt. So Jeff, let me go to you.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Karen, thanks very much for your opening remarks. They were spot on and very helpful. Honeywell's a technology company, and we support many sectors of the Egyptian economy. I won't try to discuss everything we're doing right now, but we really rely on both support from the Chamber, who's really been terrific, and also from the U.S. Embassy, who's also been terrific through their advocacy program, helping us win new projects. Examples have been we were selected to help support the new Cairo capital city project, which was really amazing. And we love to host you when you're able to travel out there to see the command center that's now being set up. It's based on really cutting edge technology. We think you'll be impressed. We also support the energy sector, working with some of the partners that are on the phone with us today. And that's a really growing business for us there. Very dynamic, very challenging in terms of foreign competition. Again, the advocacy program really plays a huge role for us there. And lastly, I guess I just want to mention our work in the defense sector. We support a number of Egypt's key defense platforms, largely obtained through the FMF program, and that's also a growing business. We're hopefully expanding our ability to help the Egyptians do things like maintain their M1 tank engines and some of the airplane engines too. So welcome, and we really look forward to working with you closely in expanding our opportunities in Egypt. Thanks.
Great, Jeff. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. We do very much appreciate it. And we're coming up close to the hour. And I guess what I'll say is I know we've got, Karen, so many phenomenal companies on here that are really across the range of the economy. And we haven't gotten to a few sectors, but I'll say that Egypt is one market where I think the U.S. Chamber has companies active really from A to Z when it comes to the economy. You know, sometimes in other markets we see really an extreme emphasis in one or two areas, but Egypt, true to form, it's really across the board, and we see very active participation, and that reflects, I think, the opportunities and interest that American companies have in Egypt. I would offer, we'll be certain to get over to you some of the papers and the documents that we've put together in close collaboration with AmCham, and I would encourage any companies. While we came together for 60 minutes today, there'll certainly be opportunities in the future, and we can make connections going forward. And let me just say, I want to turn to Khush and Hisham for any final thoughts they have, and of course our special guest. But Karen, going back to you, I can't underscore how closely we do work with AmCham. I think many of us were watching the NFL playoffs last night, and Tom Brady. I'm thinking like they're kind of like the GOAT. AmCham just keeps winning there in Egypt, like Tom Brady does, and that's not a commentary on whether you like him or don't like him. The fact is he's a winner, and that's very much like our friends at AmCham. So we're very excited about you being in this position and the strategic kind of vantage point you're bringing to it and emphasis that you're placing on the commercial pillar. And we very much look forward to you working with you. So let me go to you for any final reflections you might have, and then Hisham and Khush to bring us home.
Great, thank you so much. And I'm totally responsive to the analogy with Tom Brady. I was born and raised in Massachusetts. It's still home. He is the GOAT, okay? He's got 6 rings, all right? 6, could be 7. So I'm very excited about this. It's, as always, this is like a real pleasure for me. I think I have a good understanding of what you're doing, but I see myself as very much, my job here is to help the executive and the legislative branch to understand what you're doing, what the business environment is. It's a part of the bilateral relationship. I want to pave the way successfully for when you do come to Washington, so that you're received well, and so that these are good discussions. And I think you'll find a lot of interest. And we've talked a lot about Egypt in the 21st century, and just, Egypt's been doing things that people are oohing and eyeing over today decades ago, whether it's the peace treaty, whether it's other things. Egypt, frankly, laid the groundwork, like Jordan, for these things decades ago. And as I said before, I want people in Washington to remember that. I want people to look at Egypt as a very dynamic market. I want them to remember that, as I said, some of the most iconic American brands are already in Egypt, have been there successfully. They would like to extend. They'd like to expand. How can we find a way to demonstrate to the government that we want to be the partner of choice, your first choice, the preferred partner? And as Van and others have alluded to, it takes work. You're very lucky because you have an insider, Justin Sibrel, that has been on both sides and is the in-house advisor and can give you a good sense of Washington's thinking and things like that. But I want to be able to do that too, as will Jonathan, so that you get an idea about what the atmospherics are like. What are the things like? What is the bilateral relationship like, and how will that affect what you're trying to do? I completely understand that you are representatives of American companies, but it can all get mixed up there. And so, but it's amazing opportunities in an amazing country. So I want to be a part of that, and I do want to keep on top of the issues that you've talked about that. So let me just stop there. I know we're running out of time. Over.
Well, thank you, Karen. I think you've set the stage very well in terms of the expectations from the relationship, and certainly, you can count on us being a partner. Yes, I think that Egypt does want to be recognized, and we did hear them that when the Abraham Accords were signed, they said no one mentioned the fact in Washington that long before the other countries came along, we did it 42 years ago, and we have sustained it through difficult times. So yes, that is an acknowledgement. But on the end, and the other hand, we'd also like our administration to remember that, creating space for American companies is not representing American corporate interests abroad. It's representing American jobs here back at home. And I think that sometimes that's not realized, and that we do represent American companies, but American companies have American values. This is the major market that they operate in. And therefore, those don't end at our show when we go abroad. And with that, with a message to the Egyptian government, particularly as you look to reschedule the strategic dialogue, in the past, there hasn't been a commercial element to the strategic dialogue. We really would like that to be at the same level as the security and other aspects. We will convene American and Egyptian companies. Egyptian companies through AmCham can put the issues that they face with our country, whether it's work visas, whatever it is. And we'd like to put our issues and looked at them, kind of going back to the Go Mubarak dialogue that was there with some seriousness of purpose, because the Egyptian government does need to understand that foreign aid or military assistance cannot be separated from the whole package. They can't be dealt with the USG on one bucket and one compartment, and our issues separated from that in a different compartment. No, they have to be one and the same. And I think one of the things that we are looking forward to is coming back to normal of the USG's intergovernmental process. But in that, we'd like that normal to be better in some ways than it used to be as well. And I just would like that when the Egyptians will tell you, oh, we'll have our G2G strategic dialogue and we can have an event, if you like, on the sidelines for the commercial. No, the commercial issues, and we'll put the white paper together, should be as equal to the subtypes of other issues, human rights, defense, foreign aid, that you would discuss with them. And them hearing that from the USG would be very strong. On that, a level playing field for our companies when it comes to government procurements is very important to us. And then both American companies and the Egyptians would benefit if they really look to the health, agriculture sector with the same seriousness they've approached the energy sector with. And we have mentioned this many years to President Sisi, lots of lost opportunities for Egypt when it comes to what our health sector companies can do, our agricultural sector companies can do. But they've never had a serious interlocutor on their side, like they have with the energy sector. And that's another area, that area has had that. And we'll continue to, drill down on that and in other sectors. So just some broad level closing thoughts from us. But Hisham, let me turn it over to you. I think you're on mute.
Okay. Thank you, Khush. Thank you, Steve, for your kind remarks. Karen, thank you very much. It's a joy to see somebody who really understands what we're all about and what you can do. And apart from inviting you to come to AmCham Egypt in Cairo, and we'd love to host you there, and with our companies and with our board and others. Maybe you'd like to join our door knock. I think you're telling a very good story, and we'd like to spread that. So no, I won't. I think we're out of time, but thank you very much, everybody, and let's keep in touch. And Karen, thank you again for your support.
It's an absolute pleasure, Hisham, Khush, Steve, and others. An absolute pleasure to be here with you today. For me, it's very energizing. It's very, very important, and I like a lot of what you said, Khush. These are things that I think we can start talking to the team about and see how we can do that, and try to do something a little different, a little more impactful if we can, particularly with the new administration. Again, I know we're over time. I just want to say for myself, I look forward to when better days come visiting Egypt again. I look forward to having you come here and seeing how we can make sure it's the best possible. But in the meantime, best wishes to your family, to your colleagues. May they all stay safe and well in these strange times. Over.
You're on mute, Khush. Back on you. Khush, you're on mute.
Thank you, Karen. We look forward to our companies working very closely with you. And we will put together the material that Steve referred to and send it over to your way as a background to some of the issues discussed today.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We are adjourned. Bye-bye.
All right, Justin, stay out of trouble, hon. Bye, Steve. Thank you so much. Bye, Denise. Bye, others. Lorraine, Van, others. Caroline, Anna. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.